we are talking about the core value of accountability. And if I'm going to bring in anybody for this, I'm going to bring in my good pal, a good friend. I've known her for at least 7 years now, Claudia?
Yeah, something like that.
So we are talking about accountability, and Claudia is one of the most accountable people I know. And so she will be helping us along. So why don't you introduce yourself?
Thank you, Steve. So hi, everyone. Claudia Thompson. I'm part of the director team here in Boston. I'm the area director for Suffolk County, which Boston is in. I am also the head of the B&I Diversity and Inclusion panel that was just started. So if you're not familiar with that, you can definitely send me an email. We are basically putting together a panel to support more diversity and inclusion throughout not only the core regions, but also all throughout the United States for B&I, which is very exciting.
Yeah, and, this has been like a dream that we've been working on for a long time. So it's
have been talking. Me and Steve are both Mass people. We are both based in the B&I Massachusetts area. So we have been trying to work on this for many years. We have done a couple of talks already in the past. So we're excited. We're excited to show everybody what we've been working on. So that's good. And then of course I got my start in what Steve is like the head of with James Cooper. I am a launch director at heart always. I've launched several chapters in Boston, and I work with the crew. So that's
and a couple of new Boston chapters coming in the next week or two, right?
Next week or two, yeah, we're excited.
All right. So as we were saying, our core value of accountability. This one, when people talk about their favorite core value, they don't always say accountability because it's one of the tougher ones. It's people like to say building relationships and positive attitude, but when we think about accountability, it really is pretty wide-ranging because it really speaks to your level of professionalism and your dedication to the chapter and to your business. And so accountability really goes pretty far. But I think we'll kind of break it down and look at different aspects of it. But Claudia, let me ask you, what does accountability mean to you?
So there's so many things I can say about accountability. What I like about why it's a core value, right? It's for the obvious. People think, oh yeah, it's to make sure I show up to the meetings on time or enter my stuff. Yeah, that's kind of behind it. But really what's even deeper underneath all of that is that's what sets it apart from any other networking organization that you belong to. Many of the organizations, and I belong to chambers, I belong to many different organizations. Everyone knows I'm like the queen of networking in Boston. So I love to network and have, not as focused networking events so that I can connect with random new people. But what the difference is with BNI is that this is what makes it not a coffee club. And this is the thing that has it like where we don't want to just take your money. We actually want to make sure that you're getting the most bang for your buck. And how we do that is to make sure that you're doing the practices that you need to do so that you show up every single week and that you show up on time and that you're, not, paying attention and that you're making sure that you can give, or at least if you have the willingness to give, we can coach you. So all of those things, I think that's what it means to me is what keeps it more professional and has it be where you can get the most out of your membership.
I agree. One of the things that, we talk about when we set up these meetings for new launch groups, because they're all coming in from the outside, they haven't really experienced BNI before. And we always talk about, you're going to be in lots of other networks. You're probably coming from other networks that you're in. But this network is the one that is supposed to be your primary source of referrals. And in order to get that, it's going to take some dedication and, of course, lots of accountability.
Yeah, absolutely.
We don't always see that, and that's the tricky part. So, what happens when there's no accountability?
My goodness. So, I mean, the first of all, culture is out the window. I mean, there's a culture, but it's a different kind of culture.
Yeah.
And we have probably so many new regions on this call, but we have so many, everyone's starting off in their new roles for leadership, right? So the new leadership team is fresh off of all the training and they're pumped up and they're like, I'm going to be the one to make the difference. This is going to be great. Everyone's going to show up. Everyone's going to enter their stuff and I'm going to be the one to turn us around. And what happens is when there is no accountability, you don't really have a leg to stand on, and you kind of lose steam, or you kind of get discouraged. And I think the second that there is no accountability, it's not that you can't get it, but it takes much longer to then restore integrity. So that is a huge, huge, I see like a big loss. And it's just a challenge. And then people become complacent. Then you didn't hold this person accountable, so then you can't hold these 5 people accountable, and so on and so on. So I think when that
it's
happens,
a slippery slope, isn't it? Yeah.
It just starts to crumble. So yeah, so it's a real challenge. Yeah.
I agree. Lisa is saying that no accountability equals no growth.
Absolutely.
And I think that it really goes back to when you are, if, as you mentioned, Claudia, if you let one person, have their way, then the other people will follow, and the standards that you had up here are suddenly dropping and dropping and dropping.
Yeah.
To the point where sometimes people don't want to invite to their chapter because they're worried that the chapter may not be around, or they may not trust the people in the chapter to deliver on the way that they're meant to. And you know what? If I was in a chapter like that, the very first chapter that I was in, when I first joined BNI, and it was kind of scary, and we turned it around in a big way and went from 20 something to almost 60 members. But it took a while. You can't change culture overnight, but you can make these small changes along the way to fix them. So if you are in a chapter right now, those of you who are on today's webinar, and wondering how can you improve your chapter's culture, don't expect it to happen overnight. But new leadership team should be putting in 1 or 2 small changes at the beginning. Don't go crazy. You don't want to suddenly become this chapter that is asking more than it's asked for in the past, right? I'm sure, Claudia, you've run into those things where you have to kind of make subtle changes that are long lasting.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's you want to, and as a director, our goal, BNI is here as a tool to help you grow your business. That's what it's there for. And so we're here to help make sure that happens as much as possible. But when there is these kinks or any kind of issues, we have to resolve those issues in order to move forward. So a lot of times, I can see, I'm a big picture person and I want to solve all the problems for you, but I'm aware that even I can let you know what's going on, and then we have to roll out certain things, kind of take it as a priority. But, and then again, the people that want the change, you want to roll out everything as well. And it may be overwhelming on a chapter that has had no accountability for quite some time. So I think it's important to see where you're at, but also just make sure that you have a few, even if you get a couple people on board with you, it's a good opportunity to start to move forward.
Yeah, and by the way, we are not just calling out small chapters here. There are some large chapters that have really relaxed a little bit, maybe too much.
Yeah, because I think they're under the impression that, well, we're big, we don't really, and whatever we're doing seems to be working. So sometimes sometimes you get quality members in a big chapter, and sometimes you just have people that haven't been removed, and it's just the numbers.
They're there for the coffee.
Yeah. So I mean, I think, or just haven't left, or because again, there's been that complacency. So no one is holding you accountable. So if you think even in your own businesses, if someone is not holding your feet to the fire or kind of keeping that edge going, and I know for myself, I appreciate that, that helps you to grow and to move forward.
And the one thing that I wanted to mention is we are not about having a chapter that is so focused on business and so stringent that it's not a good experience. It's just really important to have that beautiful balance of a fun, upbeat meeting where everybody gets along and supports each other, and it's still a business meeting.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. I think it's a lot of fun. I've seen chapters that are doing all the basics, right? Dr. Meisner talks about all the basics, back to the basics, the win sprints. They do the things that you're supposed to do. They don't try to go above and beyond. And just doing those simple things, but every week, and everyone is doing it, they actually have a lot of fun because they're making money, because they're engaged, they like each other, and it's a good time.
Right. So I think this is a good time to talk about VCP. We've done a few webinars on VCP, visibility, credibility, profitability. And the thing that we want to point out here is that when everybody is accountable, the chances for profitability are going to go up. When we talk about VCP, it's not, you don't get to VCP the way like you're climbing a mountain and then you get to the top and there you are. It is, we always describe it as a continuum or a status. So you can get into profitability with some of your best fellow members, but you can also fall out of it as well. And sometimes when you fall out of it, it's because you're not being as accountable as you need to be in these very strong relationships.
Yeah, that's a great point. So I know, with my launch history, a lot of times it's a little different. Like we do have the interviews, but I really look at how do they show up every single week, right? And you're doing the same, essentially. You are auditioning or applying over and over again for the referrals that you want in your chapter. So if you show that you are accountable, no one has to kind of chase you, you're not no-showing at the meetings, you're not no-showing to one-to-ones. If you're doing all of these things, it's like, I feel comfortable sending my parent to this person, or I feel comfortable sending my best client to this person. Because especially with your clients, right? You feel you've worked so hard to get them, some of them, and then someone can potentially mess up on your say-so. You said that this person was the person that they should get for this profession, and then they don't do the job, they don't follow up. So I think accountability is everything, and that could lead to, you might get one deal from that person, but if you don't continue to not show up and be accountable within your group, you probably would see less, referrals coming your way and business on a regular basis.
Yeah, and I think, accountability starts even before you have that meeting. If you're a person who initiates one-to-ones to try to get business going, I think that's a good start to show that you're going to be accountable for any work that you receive, because you're the one who's asking for it. So if you're one of those, I'm going to hang back and wait for people to ask me to do a one-to-one, let's maybe next week do something different and reach out to people, especially newer members would love to get that connection and talk to you and do a one-to-one with you.
Yeah, and then you're also training them of how to be good members by you reaching out to them. So yeah.
And that all speaks to culture, right? If we're doing one-to-ones right off the bat as new members come in, they know that that's what the expectation is.
Yes, exactly.
So let's talk about the things that happen inside your meeting during those 90 minutes of your meeting that can improve your credibility. We talked about a few things. I would say for me, the one thing that you can do inside your BNI meeting to show that you're accountable is to have a strong Power of One report, because that says that you are across the board working and participating at a high level.
Absolutely. It's interesting because, you would love, especially as an area director, love to see everyone embrace the Power of One and want to be in the green. You're not a bad person or a bad member if you're not in the green. However, but if you are in the green, there is that level of credibility, right? It's like, wow, this person really takes this seriously. They probably likely are to take everything else seriously. Again, and it speaks back to the profitability piece. And if you are referable. So yeah, definitely making sure that you're doing that is really important.
I think that it's so easy to get into yellow, right? If you're showing up at your meeting, if you're doing one-to-one a week, and you're getting one CEU, which you're getting for every time you come onto one of these webinars, you're getting a CEU, right? That's 60 points right there.
Yep.
Right? So that's yellow.
That's yellow. Yeah.
You haven't even passed a referral or brought a visitor yet.
Exactly.
So, if you're not in yellow yet, sometimes it's just because you're not reporting everything. So make sure every time you do something you did your training last month, you should be getting CEUs for that, right? You should be getting CEUs every time you do a webinar. So you want to make sure that's happening, and that, you're doing one-to-ones, which is the most important thing that you can do to increase the amount of money you're going to get in BNI.
Especially now. Especially now that you're not seeing everyone face-to-face in person. So
Agreed.
yeah. I think for myself, sorry.
Well, I mean, we're okay. We can go back. Go ahead.
No, well, I was going to say too, we're in different times, right?
Yeah.
So I've been a member for 17 years of BNI, so most of my meetings have been in person. So there's certain things that you can do, but now there's a new set of things that people have picked up, good and bad.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure,
Good point.
because if you are like stationary and available for your meeting. I don't know how many trainings, however many trainings I did, probably 20, 22 last month for vice president and membership committee, and heard so many people say, such and such has their camera off the whole time. Such and such is driving during the meeting. You have to think, if you're meeting in person, you can't just hit an invisible button and then just disappear. You would actually have to be, you would be, comments would, be said, shared with you if you were on your phone the whole time. If you were not engaged. So it's the same thing, the same rules apply. So I think that also leads to making sure it's not that these things happen, but to hold someone else accountable, hold yourself accountable.
And, to be fair, kids are going to be come running by and all that stuff. If you drop off for a second and come back, that's okay.
Absolutely.
But expect, for the most part, to be on camera, because it does. Here's the thing I've seen. When visitors come into a meeting and they see that some cameras are off, that gives them permission to turn off their cameras as well.
Absolutely. So then you don't know if what they're getting from the meeting. Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. Or even newer members.
Yep, agree.
Yeah.
What about outside the meeting? So here's two people on the job here. But I think it's important when you're interacting with people, or in this case, if you're getting what looks like a very large referral that these people are working on, to treat that referral like it's the most important thing you've got every single time you get a BNI referral.
Right. Yeah, everything. So you mean even from being there in the office or whatever you do?
Wherever.
Yeah, just even from the second that you receive the referral, being accountable, making sure you're following up. Don't have the person that gave you the referral have to come back to you, but just making sure that you're really taking care of them, again, like it would be your own family member or your own best client. Really show appreciation, because that will go a long way. So really holding yourself accountable to do the best, very best, provide the very best service that you absolutely can.
Yeah, I think that we have seen people who they may have been in BNI for a long time, or maybe they're newer members, where they take the referral for granted. And sometimes they put it on the back burner and work on their other stuff. That is not, that's not the giver's gain of it. If I'm in a network and I'm working with people on a regular basis that I'm going to see every week, I have to have a response to them when they say, how did that referral work out? Did I call them?
Yeah.
Did I get the work? And if I got the work, did I follow up on it?
Absolutely. Exactly. Very simple. Can I make a statement or a
Sure,
remark?
yeah.
So I think Jennifer said, not everyone has office space to do the Zoom. So actually I'm in my bedroom because my son, he's home for the week. He's in college, but he came home for the week, and he's told me not to be downstairs because he doesn't want to hear me while he's sleeping. So I totally get it as a parent. People have dogs. I think that's not what Steve and I are talking about. And I almost think it humanizes the situation, right? Like you kind of get a different way of getting to know people, because now you like see their children with them. I don't think it's that. I think because you're still doing your best to make sure you're engaged. It's the people who are, like whose schedule. I had someone, they had to remove the member from the group because he started scheduling a standing meeting right in the middle of the time they were supposed to meet every week, because he thought he could just pop in and off. And that's what you have to think of, giving your full time, at least as much as possible. We know things happen and come up, but you want to make sure, at least if you can, to not be on the road. It's also just not safe. And then also just keeping the camera on as much as you can.
So, yeah, even in a pandemic, we need to be accountable. Just like this new parent we see on the screen here, where we have to do our best to get through our meeting and then, tend to what we need to tend to. I know it is very tough, especially with parents who are working from home and homeschooling as well. with multiple children, it must be incredibly stressful and difficult.
Yeah.
So all we can say is to do your best, or maybe just do, if you've been off camera, just try to get on camera, or, you can stay muted as necessary if there's a lot of chatter in the background. That's appreciated. But I think that, Lisa says the new world or work, right? It's true. I mean, this is how we do what we do, and we do it in a way that shows any new members coming in that we are the best network for you to be in, and we're going to be accountable for it, even when lots of stuff is going on in the world that we can't control.
Yeah, I also too, I think it's important to remember that, right? Because it's not like you're in person, and I think that you still, quite frankly, find lots of value when you join this way virtually. It's the same to me. I'm still getting the same value as I did when I was in person, but some people may not know that, right? They may not be aware. So now you have to convince them more. And if it seems like it's a casual thing, they may not feel comfortable. If people are not being accountable for themselves, they may not feel that it's worth it to pay. Like, oh, okay, well, I can just do this, with some friends virtually. So you want to make sure that as much as you can to be as present as possible.
Right.
Yeah.
So Lisa's saying it's multitasking at its finest. And Cheryl says she loves seeing our members holding kids during the meeting if needed.
I love
Sometimes
it.
you have no choice, right? And that is
I love
okay,
it. Pets coming
Okay.
in, I love it. Yeah.
Okay. If I can move this. There we go. So what we want to talk about now are quickly 10 ways to show our accountability to our chapter.
Mm-hmm.
So let's start with number 1, and that is showing up on time. This has been, for some chapters, it's not an issue, and for others, since we've gone online, people are just like popping in 10 to 15 minutes later. And as we don't need to beat this one to death because we talked about it, but this is an important thing, especially if you're going to get a referral and have a meeting with someone also online, right? Is that person going to give you the referral if they're not showing up to the meeting? Especially if you've got, how some people are super sticklers for being on time, and that's how they judge you one way or the other.
Yeah.
If this is your best client and you're worried about that, you have to make sure that that's going to happen.
Yeah. So logging in a little bit earlier. Today I was at a meeting, and the president and myself, we were on at like 6:30. Because he was like, and thank God I tried to get on early because I was having technical difficulties. So it just allows, especially if you have visitors come, they get to know what you do. You get to do some open networking. A lot of you use the breakout room feature. It's just a good opportunity. If they're coming on and they have to hop off, they may never get a chance to hear you, right? Because I know a lot of you also have the rule of if you're late, you don't get to give your own weekly presentation. So it's really, really important to show up on time.
I like to be the first person there for a meeting because that does show accountability. But I will tell you, if you show up early and the other person is also early, you've already got that connection because you're that type of person. And that, of course, improves your VCP and your, of course, credibility and accountability. So,
Absolutely.
Okay. Moving on to the next one.
Mm-hmm.
Meaningful one-to-ones, not just a social, but meaningful. I bring this up and I always talk about it because this is my favorite thing to do. I think if you're going to increase your business, to have meaningful one-to-ones that have a result, right? So the before, of course, sending out a gains profile to the person you're going to have the one-to-one with. During it, simply paying attention, maybe break out a notebook, take some notes as you're talking, also good. And then the after, which is the follow-up. I always end a one-to-one by saying, okay, so now that we know more about each other, what can we do to follow up on this? So do you want to meet again in a couple of weeks? Do we want to have a talk next week on Monday? And I'm sure you do something similar.
I do something similar. A lot of you, hopefully, have taken the Key Skills Workshop. So they also mentioned to send your bio. And it's interesting because you only hear the bio every 4, 6, 8 weeks when someone does the speaking. Typically, you don't hear it. So it's a good opportunity for you to send, and you can find a lot of things out a little bit more personal and a little bit more relatedness to that person. And you never know, like you could say, oh, you golf? My buddy golfs, and then just pairing the two together, they might end up doing business that way. So that is key. After as well, the follow-up, I like to take my phone right out, my computer, we just start going through names, or we have some next steps about who we're going to talk to, or I might even do a group chat or a group email right away to connect them. So all of those things are really great. And I honestly, I love doing them via Zoom, because I feel like you get a lot of that other stuff out of the way, because usually someone's running in from somewhere else, especially we're in Boston, so it's the city. So I find that they're more meaningful via Zoom. That's just me personally.
Great. Okay, so a lot of people will say this is the most important thing you can do to be accountable, and that is to follow up on referrals you give and receive.
Yes, yes, I love follow-up. Just a gentle nudge or checking in afterwards, especially. I don't care as much if they said that they're going to connect me with people. It's nice, but if I promise them something, I make sure that I write that down, highlight it, star it, put it in my calendar, because again, that adds to your accountability and your credibility. So you want to make sure that you did what you said you were going to do. And if you haven't completed it, it's okay, but just be in communication about it. So follow-up, I think, is everything.
Yeah. Okay. Hello, there we go. All right, so being prepared for all presentations and meetings. So the people who are described as accountable are these people. They come to the meeting. Sometimes they've got their notes written down so that they say everything they need to say in their weekly presentation or in their feature presentation. They're prepared for their meetings. If you're in leadership and you're the president running your chapter success meeting, you want to make sure that you are prepared to do that meeting, or the vice president doing the membership committee meeting. All very, very important.
Very important. Yes, I would agree. Nothing to add to that.
Yeah, no, it's pretty simple, isn't it? Be prepared.
Yeah.
Qualifying your referrals. How about that?
Yes.
One thing that I see is sometimes people are so aggressive about, oh, you said something, I'm going to give you a referral in the meeting before they talk to that person.
Yeah.
That it's really not necessarily a qualified referral.
That is accurate. Unless it's myself.
Well, yeah, of course.
And even then, yeah, but you're right. And then they'll hold you to account. They're like, you said you might know someone, you knew a realtor. I need that name. I need that right now. So that's not qualified.
Yeah. We want to make sure that we're making that call to that third party and getting the okay to have that conversation.
Exactly.
Not that we don't appreciate the excitement about the potential for a referral.
Yes. Keep the excitement, but yes.
Okay, how about prompt reporting on the app, especially Thank You for Closed Business?
This one is very, very important. So even if I'm meeting with my members in my area or any members, I'll remind them, hey, don't forget to put it in. Or, otherwise, because I know right away I'm ready to do it, but I try to give them an opportunity. But really making sure that you're doing that, because in the end of the day, you want to know where you're at, with the chapter. But it also shows that you, especially the Thank You for Closed Business, someone took the time to give you a referral. They trusted you, and the least all you have to do is just acknowledge them by thanking them in the system. So I think it's definitely a way to show and to hold yourself accountable. And then on the other side of that, the person that gave the referral, don't be afraid to follow up and check up with the person to make sure that they entered it in. So I think that's really, really, really important, because otherwise then you don't know.
Yeah, so, and I think that, with Thank You for Closed Business, that number is not going next to you. It's going next to the person who gave you that referral. And so while you made the money and you report that number, it's going to go next to them. And if this is someone who might be like on the bubble about are they going to get renewed or not, you want to make sure that at least all of the revenue that they gave, like a credit for, I should say, has been reported.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So very, very important.
Okay.
Adrienne says she usually puts the one-to-one in the app after we both show up and let them know that it was done. So I think that is great, because Doing it in the moment, you're not going to forget about it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Okay?
Yes.
Testimonials that lead to referrals.
This is another way. The thank you for closed business into the app is nice. So the VP reports the numbers, but they're not reporting individuals. So making sure that you honor the testimonial. If you give a testimonial, especially if it led to a referral, I think it's just another way to recognize someone. Recognition is one of our core values. So I think it's super, super important, and it just adds to visibility. And it's a way that you don't have to do much. You just have to give the testimonial, because then of course that will help that person get more referrals.
One thing that I see is a lot of times someone will do their feature presentation,
Mm-hmm.
and everyone will feel compelled to give them a testimonial, no matter how strong or weak it may be. And what I find is that it really takes up the end of the meeting, and you're like, all of the good testimonial that was in there got watered down by all the other ones. So let's say the auto mechanic is there and does his feature presentation, and then everybody says, oh, you got to use him, he's the best. I get my oil changed there all the time. You know,
Mm-hmm.
they're really helpful, blah, blah, blah. That is not going to sway anybody when you are trying to get this person to pass a referral for them. It's the person who says, this is someone who takes extra care, make sure I've always got a loaner car, all of those important elements that are going to say, when your friend is looking for a new mechanic, everybody's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, use my guy. Telling these stories are the ones that are going to lead to referrals.
Yes, exactly. And now with the new format, referrals and testimonials have been kind of combined. So I'm not hearing that as much because it's happening before the ask. But you're right. When we go back in person, definitely. And I would agree with you. It does get watered down.
Yeah. Okay. Next. How about inviting and filling your contact sphere?
Yes. Absolutely. We see this a lot with the personal services, Steve, I think.
Yeah.
Or even sometimes trades, depending on where you're
Yeah.
at. And people, they say, I don't know, but they say they need all these people to work with together. So definitely being accountable, because you need all the spheres to be truly successful for a chapter. You'll have some success, but if they're all filled, it shows that if all of the spheres are filled, you're going to have a really successful chapter. So you want to take on, and if you find more people, you can partner with other people in your sphere to do it rather than having to do it all alone. So if you find one or two really great people within that sphere, it will help, but it will make a huge difference, and it holds you accountable to make sure that you're kind of managing that.
I think for new leadership teams, if you are looking at, if this was a year where you happen to have lost members for whatever reason, to see if you can just do a sprint to the end of the year and just try to replace the members that you lost, because that is all lost revenue to people in that contact sphere.
Mm-hmm.
And so just trying to get them back and getting someone else to fill that seat might be an easier way to fill the sphere, rather than just trying to brainstorm on who else can we bring in. That's great, but just look at, if you lost somebody, just try to replace them.
Yep.
Okay. Well, we already had this happen, right? So thank you to all of you who stepped up for leadership. Claudia trained about 1,000 of you, I guess.
Probably. It was awesome though.
Yeah. So anytime you can step up to leadership, that's great. During the term, it's a year-long commitment, and people may come and go. And if a seat happens to open up on the membership committee or as visitor host or wherever, be the person who steps up to leadership. That's something that's going to increase your visibility in the chapter.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also going to help out the chapter and be more successful. So why not you be the person? If you're not on leadership right now, take a shot at that.
Yeah, that's definitely, that's a huge piece. And I find people, there's someone that I had suggested when we were doing leadership team selection for one of my chapters to be an education coordinator. And I was at her meeting this morning and she blew it out of the water. And they were like, we didn't even know she could speak this much before, because she was kind of quiet, showing up. She's a relatively new member. And I said, no, there's something in her. And a lot of times, if you even offer it, because a lot of times people would like to, but they're nervous about stepping up because they're newer. especially in chapters that are older. So sometimes you have to offer it to them as well and encourage them. But Steve, you're totally right too. If you've been in the chapter for a while and haven't really stepped up, this is another way to show your commitment and definitely help out the chapter.
Right. Okay, and finally, number 10, here's where we usually do a drum roll. I'm just looking for my mouse. Oh, there it goes. To be green in the Power of One report.
That's why I'm wearing green today, everyone.
And you know what? That's a there you go. That is a goal. If you are in gray or red now, you know, you can move up fairly quickly, but just start doing small things to get out of whatever color you're in up into the next one. Don't feel like you have to jump from red to green, but just move up consistently, and it'll happen for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's definitely, it's because you're doing all the things too. And I promise you, if you get yourself to green eventually, like, you're a happier member. So for those that have been complacent or resigned, or even for my membership committee folks who are talking to members that are that way, encouraging them to boost their traffic lights, to do those practices, I bet you'll see a change in them.
By the way, I learned something very interesting. There is a region in Florida that does not a Power of One report, but a Power of Two report.
What does that mean?
So they double up. They do 2 one-to-ones a week, 2 referrals.
I love it.
2 visitors a month. It's really a pretty impressive thing. But this is a region, you know, that's got, you know,
$10 million chapters.
$70 million, 70 members doing $1 million in business. It's really pretty impressive.
That is awesome. I like that idea.
All right, so you can feel free to share your ideas in the chat. Some of you already have. I'm going to jump into the Q&A. We've got a few questions here. So, my good friend Pez is saying, is a referral and a visitor equal to 20%? Each equal to 20% in the traffic lights? Yes, all of the 5 elements are each worth 20%.
Yes, for those that are not great at math like me.
Yeah, so visitors, attendance, one-to-ones, referrals, and CEUs are all 20%. Okay, next, can regular members access the Power of One report? Yes, regular member, you certainly can.
Regular. Yeah, absolutely.
Do you know how they're listed, Claudia, on university?
So for the core regions, they're in the university, which is now business.
Yeah, Business Builder.
Business Builder, the app. So if it's in there and you just go under content, but you can go in the search no matter what. You don't have to click on anything else. As soon as you're on the main page, you can click on content and then just write Power of One and then your region. And then the most recent ones will pop up. Or you can put Power of One October and you'll see Minnesota, you'll see Massachusetts, Michigan, and so on.
Right, great. How do you help fellow chapter members understanding that giving a shout out is not the same as a testimonial? Yes.
Love it.
This is what we were talking about, right?
Love it. I love it. Yes.
It's hard not to do the shout out. You have to kind of restrain yourself and understand that the greater good of the chapter is to listen carefully to testimonials that make sense, for you to take those stories and tell them to other people so that you're going to bring referrals or visitors into the chapter.
Yes, absolutely.
And there are some chapters that say, you know, that's what we want. If you've got a legitimate testimony, maybe it's a testimonial that is good enough to put out into the internet, to put on Yelp or Google or LinkedIn, anywhere that you want to go out there and give a good testimonial. That's what it is. So if it's something that's more of just a shout out, I would pass on doing that. Brenda says, qualifying referrals has been an issue. How should this be addressed when it occurs more than twice?
So I assume with a member that's not giving quality referrals?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I've seen this problem happen before. It may be sending them to looking up a podcast yourself and listening to it, you know, having the mentor coordinator work with them. Maybe you put it into the education moment. There's a couple of different options, but really working with them. I find if someone is really struggling with something, I just do a quick Zoom with them, or I just get on the phone with them and then actually understand what it is that they're dealing with and try to resolve it. Because a lot of times it can be resolved much quicker than making assumptions. or going back and forth in an email or a text. So I find that if you let them know that the issue is there and you're being direct about it, that they're there to support them, they're usually more open and receptive to coaching. So just letting them know this is a lead, and then this is a referral. And then you could, I mean, I don't know, Steve, if you have anything else.
Yeah, I mean, here's what I know. First off, even if you got the worst referral ever, something you just have is just not something that works for you at all. The fact that someone thought of you at all is a big thing. So we're positive and supportive here in BNI. So we start with thank you for that referral, and then maybe let's do a one-to-one, or bring in a mentor or whatever you want to do. But you want to make sure that everything you're doing is a way of saying thank you, but let's just kind of focus it in the correct direction, because the main thing is that they're thinking about you at all.
Right, that's true. And a lot of times it really does take that you want to look not to blame yourself, but a lot of times people just are not clear on what it is based on the weekly presentation alone. So a lot of times, even the one-to-one, so you want to make sure, okay, I get it now. My messaging might not have been clear, or I really appreciate this, but let me, try to help you understand. But I think usually having that approach is totally fine.
Okay, so I just put into the chat bnionline.com, and then the password business growth all in lowercase, because Dana's asking about, she didn't know about a new format for the agenda. Where can I find that?
Yes.
So you want to go to BNI Online, and you'll be able to just simply download the new PowerPoint, which will have the latest, most updated agenda.
I think it's under Team Resources or something when you go to the page, and then the PowerPoint is right there, and you can, it's pretty simple to find. There's some other really great things. They're like scripts and stuff like that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shannon asked, where do we find the Power One report? Again, it is in content on, people are confused about this business builder thing.
I know.
Right? So,
I know, because it sounds like business.
I know, Business Booster webinar series. So the Business Builder is a new version of BNI University. It's basically the same old BNI University, but it does have some new elements to it. And you can just go to bniuniversity.com right now to find it. So it'll take you right there. So that's that. Power of One report we find in that content section. And Marita says, great webinar always, and that Claudia is awesome.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. All right, and I'm just going to quickly jump over to the chat because people have been typing in some things.
Okay.
I know it's very interesting to me. I saw Jim Bartlett talk about how they moved to 2 speakers in a chapter that's almost 100 members. So
they have been only doing one?
They had only been doing one, which means you only get to talk like once a year. Now we're talking twice a year, but it is impressive to me that a chapter of that size can figure out a way to get it done. Really impressive.
That's awesome.
Nancy says our chapter split the weekly presentation and the I have portion of the meeting so that the members speak before and after the featured presentations. It also helps the members keep the members more involved in the online meetings, since they can't just disappear after they speak at the beginning of the meeting. I like that. So it's essentially going back to the way it was when there were live meetings.
Oh, Jim says, he's clarifying.
Oh, yeah.
They always did have 2 speakers.
Oh, well, Jim, I'm more disappointed now. What happened? All right. All right. Oh, someone else said they switched it. Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah,
well, you're still a great chapter, so I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, we got it.
Okay. Anything else that we see in the chat here that we want to look at? Jill says, I'm new to this and really a lot of information. Can my coordinator help me with any PowerPoint presentations? I would go to the person in your chapter who just happens to be good at it.
Yeah, you can ask. The president is accountable to make sure that it gets done, but they don't have to be the one to do it. So if someone else, I found a lot of times someone finds someone that's a really strong in Zoom or strong in PowerPoint, and they can help you put it together. The first time is long because you're trying to, if you haven't been using it. But after that, it's pretty simple. But you can always find people that would love to actually help. And again, it might be some of these people that are on the quieter side, and it gives them a role. So.
Yeah, very interesting, by the way, that question popped up, because I am meeting with a member named Holly Hearn, who is kind of a PowerPoint expert, and we are going to do a webinar. in the coming weeks on
Nice.
how to do a good, effective PowerPoint presentation in your
I
job.
will definitely be on that one.
Yeah. All right. So we are, Claudia. We've been chatting away. It's we're at the time limit here. So we're going to wrap up now. Thanks everybody for being on today. There's Claudia's contact information if you'd like to get in touch. Give yourself a CEU for being on today, and join us next week. We're